Hey there, I'm Aryeh Schwartz along with Rachel Galligan, and we are here for another installment of the Winsidr Film Room. We are honored today to be joined by a WNBA legend, a WNBA champion, a 7-time All-Star, and recorded top 10 in WNBA all-time scoring and rebound lists, Candice Dupree. Candice, thanks for joining us.
Not a problem. Thank you for having me.
Oh, also, I should say, you were the first person ever drafted by the Chicago Sky, so
I was, yes.
that's pretty cool.
As we were going through the show, I was like, oh my God, that's right. Like, I grew up in Chicago and I remember that, but man, that's pretty cool. That's a fun fact that a lot of people don't know.
Yeah.
There's definitely going to be like sometime there's going to be that trivia question, and it's going to win somebody a lot of money. So talk to us a little bit, just a few questions about your career, about kind of your growth from the college game to the professional game. While I was doing some research on you, I noticed that your coach in college at Temple was the great Dawn Staley, and you even played against her in the pros. I know a lot about the W. I did not realize or remember that Dawn actually coached and played at the same time, which is mind-boggling for somebody who doesn't play and just watches the amount of effort and work that goes into it. But could you talk to us a little bit about your relationship with Dawn and what it was like to play against your coach and maybe get the better end of her?
It was pretty cool. When I was in school, she was actually still playing for the Charlotte Sting. And whenever we had the opportunity, we would go up to New York and watch her games, Connecticut, DC. So being in college and having an opportunity to watch your college coach compete at the pro level, I think meant a lot to us as players because we were all about supporting her as much as we could. And then by the time I got to the league, at that point, she was in Houston playing for the Comets. And it was pretty cool. I mean, I don't really keep up with who plays against who, first time a player gets to compete against their coach. But we had a good time. I don't remember which team won that game. But, it was a great experience. I think it's probably the only time that it's ever been done, maybe the only time that it ever happens. I think, she's obviously grown tremendously as a coach, being at South Carolina now and winning a championship and putting together an amazing program there. So it's cool to say that I had the opportunity to play.
Are you still in touch with her, and have you kind of had a kinship to her? I mean, she's been feeding people from South Carolina to the league for the past few years now, like crazy. Is there kind of a connection between you and those players?
Yes, but no. I do play with one in Indiana, Tiffany Mitchell. So obviously there's a connection there. I've gone back a few times because I do have some of my former college teammates that I'm still really good friends with to this day work with her at South Carolina. So I have gone there to visit them and to visit Coach Staley and kind of, just see what their practices are all about and talk to the players a little bit. But I mean, it's cool. I reach out whenever I can. She keeps up with me and my two little ones. And, we communicate via social media, or we have a bunch of group chats going on with all the former Temple players and her. So we still try and stay in touch as much as possible.
That's really cool. I mean, it's an amazing chain of events to have that happen. It's still really mind-blowing. Talk to me a little bit. I know I saw a video, I believe it was before the season last year, just kind of how your training regimen has kind of changed over the years with technological advances and whatnot. Could you just briefly talk about kind of how that's happened and what's gone on with your career?
I think I've obviously gotten smarter when it comes to nutrition and strength and conditioning. When I was younger, I remember in Chicago, I would eat Portillo's before every game. A medium strawberry shake, a medium fry, and 2 chili cheese dogs. That was my pregame meal. It's changed a lot over the last 14 years. I'm definitely a lot more aware of what I'm putting into my body. And then obviously as I've gotten older, strength and conditioning is a huge component. But I mean, I've been told by a lot of coaches that I'm a machine. It takes a lot for me to get tired. No wasted energy on the court for me. So body's held up well. Thankful for that. Just looking to keep pushing forward.
Awesome. Well, Rachel, I'm going to toss it on over to you and we can dive into some film.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just excited. There's about a million ways we could have gone with this. I mean, you're entering your 15th season. You have arguably I mean, there's probably maybe one or two more players who have more international and domestic experience as you do. So it's like, which direction do we go with this is a little bit of a challenge, but I'm just excited. We're going to dive into this film and watch some of your offensive clips. And as we get through this, I'm going to share my screen. Sorry, Hayden, got to enable the shared screen.
Oh, my bad.
I love technology. Anyway, we'll go through some of your offensive clips and, just kind of talk us through, and this is going to be last year with the Fever.
Okay.
And everyone talks about your 15-foot jumper. We're going to see a lot of that stuff. And I have some questions about that in particular, your mid-range game after we go through the film. But just talk about some of the action that you guys are running, different action, maybe how the defense is defending a ball screen and kind of your thought process. I mean, the whole idea of this is just to kind of get inside the X's and O's mindset of WNBA players. So let me get this going. And then this first one, it's going to be kind of just, can you guys see that okay?
Yeah.
All right, perfect. We are going to go ahead and start with like a ball screen into like just a jumper. I know that's pretty much your bread and butter, so it's a perfect start for us. And I don't know the date of this game, but that action right there, it's kind of a chase ball screen. She refuses it. The defense gets confused and you pull up, right?
We ran into she being Tina Charles ran into what we call an ice situation on the side in the defense. So once I saw Tina jump to stop the guard, I just popped back.
Yep.
And guard throws me the ball.
So that's just a read that's automatic for you at this point.
Yeah. So who is that with the ball? Shanice Johnson. So she took a dribble to draw her man and the post player, which created separation for me to get more space to get my shot off. And clearly, Amanda Zowie right there, amazing defense. You can tell her I said it. We're pretty good friends. She's not paying attention to help sides. So wide open jumper.
Well, and that's part of this too. This is now our fourth one of these film sessions, and people were like, "Well, we want to see some mistakes." Well, obviously, I feel it would be very disrespectful to pull up a lot of your
mistakes. You need to have us talk about defensive stuff.
Exactly. So feel free to point out any breakdowns from the defense or anything that you see, calling people out.
Yeah, I can only call out certain people. If I'm not cool with them, I can call them out.
Okay. All right, this next one, same action. I mean, you do so much ball screen action. And is that kind of something that the whole offense is designed around you getting into that screening action?
I don't know that it was designed around me to do that. It's just ball screens are hard to defend. I mean, for anybody, there's a lot of different schemes and different ways that teams try to guard them. But depending upon who's coming off of it, if they're being aggressive, it's kind of like the defense has to pick, okay, are we going to stop the ball? Are we going to try and rotate back to the post player that set the screen? That's why, ball screens are so difficult to guard.
Yeah. This next one, actually, let me run that last one back, because, again, this is just a read. Tina Charles, go with the ball handler, and like you said.
Right.
Money.
Somebody would have, who is that? Number 5. I don't know who that is. If they would have rotated to me, then it's an extra kick to the guard that's up there. So if the defense rotates to me, I can give it to Shanice Johnson. It's just, you got to kind of pick your poison.
Yeah.
With a ball screen.
More screen action. You're in transition. You love fading to that short corner, don't you?
Yeah, it's the open spot on the floor.
I mean, we literally just saw them play the ball screen basically the same way, and you're just getting horse shots.
Yeah.
I mean, when this is happening, are you just in your mind, you're like, all right, they're taking the ball handler every time. I'm just getting these open shots. You're just licking your chops and ready to rack up the points.
Yeah, for me, I'm going to keep taking that shot until they stop it. It worked well for us. If they do take that away, the next thing is shot fake, put it on the floor, either get a layup or drive and kick. It just depends on how the defense rotates out of it.
This one right here, as a former post player myself, we had certain spots. Like if a guard was penetrating down the lane, you know, and they were on your side, there were certain spots you were supposed to kind of fade to. And you do this automatically because you've done it your whole career. But talk us through what's happening here is Erica Wheeler's penetrating down the lane. Because you're versatile. You can go down and post up.
Well, yeah. So because it's me and Natalie Achanwa in it, we essentially set like a double, what we call like a double drag, or this terminology for us was a double get because it was kind of more on the side of the floor. Okay. Wheeler comes off both of those. And because Achanwa was in it, who can also shoot 15, 17 foot range, I rolled, she popped. Now, if it was myself and maybe McCowan, obviously you would want McCowan to dive to the basket and then I would pop on that. So it's just about reading who you're playing with and where. I mean, like initially when I dove down, Tina and Brittany Boyd both stayed with me. So the ball probably should have gone to Achanwa. But I mean, it just depends. Just knowing each other offensively and reading and seeing where to move.
Well, just the spacing of that. I mean, obviously there's nowhere to go. If you stay there down on the block and Wheeler continues to penetrate, you're on top of each other. So just you stepping out. I mean, the spacing, you have such a great understanding of spacing.
I mean, I don't like people all up on me, so I try to be all up on my teammates on offense. Give them some room to work.
Has the spacing gotten better the last few years with the Fever? I mean, I know we'll talk about that later, but young team, a lot of young players, kind of felt like that first year, everyone kind of on top of each other. Has that gotten better?
It's progressively gotten better. I mean, we all tend to crowd each other so much. Why, I'm not sure, because I mean that just plays into the defense's hands. It'll be interesting to see how it goes this year, being that we have a new head coach and stuff. But I know that spacing is definitely always something that's being discussed, like get out of each other's way. We don't want a team picture on offense.
This next one, kind of cool. I mean, you are constantly able to get your own shot, you know, and you talk about players being able to get your own shot. In my opinion, at least being able to play with your back to the basket and get a shot over a big time defender because you can create space in this way. And this is a high level shot. This is a tough shot. And we're going to run this through a couple times because I just love this.
Yeah. So that the back to the basket stuff comes from college in my first few years in Chicago. Like I played the 5 in college. You know, I was the tallest player that we had on the team. And I was always coached to be composed, like don't rush, don't play at the pace of the defense, take your time, read what they're giving you. So that's essentially what this move is. Like bait Amanda, if she stays, kick it out. If not, go up like I did.
Well, and composure on the block is, I mean, I can speak from the collegiate standpoint as a former post coach, but you know, a lot of it's tough to play down there because you immediately want to freak out and get the ball or dribble or, you know, a little bit, the composure and the patience you have, not to mention the 1 foot kind of fadeaway. This is just as high level as it gets, in my opinion.
Yeah, and then it kind of helps having the defensive 3 seconds at the pro level because I can dribble and bait the weak side defender. And if they're sitting in the lane, that's defensive 3 seconds, automatic free throw from a technical. So it's just reading where people are.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that play was just so freaking smooth. I mean, your head's on a swivel. You can see, like, I wish we had one of those they do in the NFL where, like, the vision where your eyes are because you're surveying the whole court, which is, and it's such like a calm, kind of just like slowly moseying through the field. It's great. I love it.
Yeah.
And now you talked about, you know, in college you play in the 5. This play here, and what's crazy about you, I've watched you through your whole career because I've lived in the same areas you've been in. You can do some things that you're like, where the hell did that come from? Like you're kind of like this steady pace, but then you'll do something explosive and it's like, oh my God. And this one I love. And is this something that you had to implement in your career? I mean, you pretty much get it out on the perimeter.
Mm-hmm.
And then you just get it to the rim, like blow by.
Yeah.
I mean, when did you
explosiveness, right?
I mean, it's like explosive in your own way. You're just one speed, but yet you're so athletic that you just get it. I don't know. Help me understand.
It's the way that I've always played, and I had an assistant coach in college, the one that just preached like taking your time, knowing when to go fast, knowing when to go slow. So like in that situation, once I popped back and caught the ball, I know, okay, she's probably going to try and run at me and close out. And I'm looking down the lane's wide open. Everybody for the most part, Tina and Amanda are outside the paint. So it's like, why not put it on the floor and go?
Well, and like how many dribbles it takes you to get there.
Well, yeah.
that's
right.
Like that second step is just so explosive.
I love it.
You're already past her. Like there's nothing she can do at that point.
Yeah, because she had to close out. So it's like blow by. For me, it's all about, I can shoot, but I try not to settle. Obviously getting a layup is going to be more efficient than settling for a jumper. It's a higher percentage shot. And for me, something that I've prided myself on throughout my career is my consistency, my efficiency, trying to make sure I shoot above 50% every game, trying not to take too many bad shots. A lot of coaches are like, we need you to shoot the ball more, be a little bit more selfish, which may include taking more bad shots. But I mean, I just try to be as efficient as possible.
That's something that at times it's hard to get players to understand.
Well, yeah, I mean, if you're scoring 30 points, but it's taking you 25 attempts to do it, kind of defeats the purpose.
It's passing up a good shot for a great shot.
Yeah.
And that's what you've gotten really good throughout the course of your career of understanding. And we'll see a couple clips later where you're phenomenal, even using shot fakes and your footwork and understanding of what could have been a good shot, working for that great shot, which, I think we all appreciate out of your game that you're able to do. This next one is going to be kind of that more, kind of that, I forget what you were calling it, that double screen action. It's
yeah,
like
double get.
A get.
For us, I don't know, other coaches may call it something else, but just pertaining to Indiana and Pokey's schemes, for us, this was double get.
And so you and Achanwa were in this a lot last year.
Yeah.
It's just something that you guys need a shot. You need some, I mean, it's really difficult to defend from so many ways. And you and that 17-footer, man, you don't really need to say much about it. This next one, again, we talked about shot faking and reading the defense, which, is so important to get a great shot. Talk us through this one. She's like, I'm just good.
Just being patient. I mean, I feel like I get a lot of people with that. It's just like super slow, one dribble, gather. And it actually helps me get into a better rhythm on my shot after I see the closeout. And it's kind of like, all right, little rhythm dribble, step into it, shoot it.
And this is obviously a broken play, you with the ball in your hands. Your ability to get your own shot because you can create the space you can create. I just thought this was a fun clip of you just kind of doing what you do.
Dancing around, little.
We'll let it run for a few more clips here. Just kind of walk us through what you see.
Oh, that one right there, just making myself available off of an offensive rebound. Mabunga did a great job of crashing the boards. Tiff went aggressively. So just trying to space out and give an outlet to the rebounder. Let's see, step up. Yeah, just trying to put myself in a position to where the person that's attacking can find me. And on that particular one, Tiffany Mitchell had great court vision. She was able to pull in 2 or 3 defenders and kick it out.
What are some of your, what would you say your greatest weakness offensively is?
Right now, probably not, going into this season, it'll probably change, but looking to shoot the 3-ball more. Mm-hmm. That's something that actually Coach Stanley has emphasized a lot in talking to her this offseason is being able to step out and shoot that. We've watched we had actually had a synergy film session, and she just trying to pick my brain. She's like, okay, why would you not take that shot behind the 3-point line? And I shot the 3 quite a bit when I was in Chicago. And then once I went to Phoenix, I wasn't necessarily asked to do that. And then they eventually moved the 3-point line back. And I just never had to worry about shooting the 3. I mean, when you're playing with Diana and Penny Taylor and DeWanna Bonner, like I wasn't called upon to have to do that. But going into this upcoming season, it's definitely something I have to look at doing. You know, coaches, like, your heels are right there on the line. Why not just step back a little bit further, knock it down? So there'll be more of an emphasis on that, but that's for sure probably the weakest part right now of my offensive game.
Okay. Well, this is a good offensive one to end on. 1.4 on the clock. You guys are, looks like in a box set, looks like Mitchell might be leaving a little early. I'm not sure. I don't know if you remember this play, but you hit kind of a little buzzer beater in the corner here.
I set the screen, and then if I had to guess, is Mabonga going to pin in for me? Let's see. Set it there. Yeah, screen's in. Big jumper. Yeah.
So you knew that was coming to you.
Yeah. Unless I wouldn't have been open, but yeah, this is how the play. This was our last thing. Like when we only have a second or 2 on the shot clock, this was our go-to.
It looks like the first option is you. Second option could be this dive, but they're sticking with her.
Yeah.
And then bam. Easy.
Your extension is you got some long arms. It's like it must be so freaking annoying for defenders to try and get you on the block, because like you have the fade, you got the long arms. I mean, they're not blocking it.
It's kind of deceiving. Most people don't realize until they're standing in front of them and they're like, God, like, damn it, Candice, why are your arms so damn long? And I'm like, sorry. Most people don't realize it until they're actually playing against me.
Yeah. Well, let's switch some gears here. Rebounding.
Mm-hmm.
And it was funny, before we started the show, I was like, yeah, we're going to go through rebounding. And you made a funny comment about, oh man, I still do that. You know, you've been a phenomenal rebounder. You averaged like just under 7 in your career. And, you know, it's not, you know, I'm not going to go through and have you dissect every single clip. If you see something you like, let us know. But I just kind of want to more so talk about
trying to take the lead back,
rebounding, and kind of your mentality and your approach with it. And what you feel like makes a great rebounder in the WNBA.
I just think it's being tenacious and the effort, and every rebound is yours. And I think, you know, players in my mind that I can think of that I hated having to box out were like Rebecca Brunson. She was known for that. Like every rebound was going to be hers. Mm-hmm. And so for me, there are times when I do have that mentality, and there's others where I'm like, man, that's a lot of work and a lot of energy to go crash the boards every single time. But it's just, you just have to have the willingness to want to do it. Mm-hmm. Just effort.
And what do you think has made you through your career such a solid rebounder? I mean, obviously you have the strength, you have the length, but you're going up and getting a lot of rebounds with one hand, bringing them down. I mean, you secure that.
Hands, man. I got really big hands.
Bam, like you're grabbing that thing. I mean, you know, and you just kind of position yourself, but you know, like Dennis Rodman, you know, would read the flight of the ball exceptionally well. Is that something you've ever really studied, or do you just kind of
studied? No, but it is something that I do think about. Like they're going to shoot it from the opposite baseline. Chances are it's going to bounce the opposite side of the basket. Like, so yeah, I do recognize stuff like that. Do I think I'm the best rebounder? No, I've played against a lot. Like I remember when Cheryl Ford used to play, like it was like every time the ball went up, she was in the right position to get it. And I just think some players, like they just have that feel for it when it comes to rebounding. I mean, obviously you can study it, but it's not something that I've ever done. I don't know if it's just a knack for knowing where it's going to be. Yeah. But
what's the mentality with it? Do you really feel strongly that the greatest teams in the league are the best rebounding teams?
I think that's part of it. Yes. Eliminating, you know, your opponent's offensive rebounds is a huge part of the game. I think that's something that we struggled with in Indiana, just giving up too many offensive boards. So yeah, it definitely, if you can get one shot and out, definitely helps for sure.
We are going to stop with the film for there, because as much as I want to sit here and just watch you knock down every shot, we want to talk about a lot of stuff too, because we're excited to have you on here. And I want to kind of talk about your game in general. There's this day and age, when you're looking at the grassroots game, you're looking at, I watch a lot of high school kids, I watch a lot of AAU in the summertime. No one has a mid-range game. Like, their ability to come off a ball screen and pull up, or just knock down a 15, 17 footer. And we could even talk about that into the NBA. I mean, in some ways, it does kind of feel like the way you play is a lost art. Do you feel that way at times, or have you seen the switch and kind of the way the game has been?
Sometimes I feel that way. I feel like it's all about the three ball now. Like, you can be 7 feet tall and coaches are teaching you to shoot the three instead of getting on the block and posting up. And I think that myself and probably Simone Augustus probably have 2 of the top mid-range games in the league. And for me, like I told you earlier, it's about efficiency. Like, I'm going to take shots that I know I can hit on a consistent basis. I don't have a problem shooting the three, but I'm like, if that's all everybody is doing, shooting the three and not making the three, for me, like, it just doesn't make any sense. Now, if you can shoot the three and you have a really good percentage, by all means. And like I said, that's something that I've tried to work on this off season, and I'll continue to do so if and when our team, gets together. And I've talked to Coach Stanley about that. She's like, as long as you're putting in the work, after practice and in practice, I have no problem. I want you to shoot the three. And for me, I know I'm not going to shoot it if I'm not knocking down a decent percentage from behind the 3-point line. And I mean, I do feel like the mid-range game is a lost art. It's either layups or threes. Who can get up the most threes and just outshoot each other?
Yeah, you even see like the training videos, or kids go through personal trainers, and it's like, I don't know. I've seen it like the last 5 to 8 years, where I'm like, it's so rare to find someone that plays the way you play.
I mean, I'd rather get 3 points the old-fashioned way, 2 points and a free throw, and
right.
1. I mean, you watch these NBA guys, and they're shooting from damn near half court, like, just to get 3 pointers up. For me, it doesn't make sense. I'm not saying don't shoot, like, we shouldn't have the 3 ball, but I just think there's too much of it. Like, everybody feels like they have the green light to shoot 3, instead of fine-tuning other parts of their game. You see players that can shoot threes but can't make layups, can't hit mid-range shots.
What do you feel like your favorite aspect of your game is? What's your favorite thing to do?
I do like back to the basket a lot, probably because that's what I did, like being an undersized 5 and just being able to go to work one-on-one against people on the block, and then probably pick and pop. I mean, when I played in Phoenix, me and Taurasi, like, we just murdered people off.
For sure.
You got to figure out, am I going to stop Diana, who's probably going to knock down this 3, or am I going to stop Dupree on pop? So we killed people with it. And I think if we can figure out how to get that going in Indiana, I think it'll help us tremendously. Not to say that it hasn't, but on a more consistent basis, a healthy diet of it.
Well, that brings me into a good point. Looking back at your career, you were selected 6th overall to Chicago, beginning a few years of your career, and then you went to Phoenix and just killed it there. I mean, you were averaging double figures every single year. You guys were just, like you said, murdering people. And then now you've kind of accepted a different role in Indiana. Entering your 15th season in the league, obviously your role has changed. But what has that evolution been like for you? And kind of, I think obviously it's safe to say now with the Fever, you're very much the veteran that is really trying to help a lot of these young kids kind of figure out what's going on. So how has your evolution throughout your career changed?
Well, obviously my first 4 years in Chicago was more about growing, understanding the pro game. It was a team built of role players. It was a brand new franchise, and so they got to pluck one person from every team in the league. So we didn't have any superstars, anything like that, but I think I had a really good group of players around me that helped me grow in my first 4 years. Then going to Phoenix, obviously the level of talent there it was like I was a role player, but I wasn't a role player. Like I still managed to be an all-star. Like you said, still managed to average double digits, but I just played. Like I wasn't asked to do anything. I wasn't asked to lead. I wasn't asked to do any of that. And then now I'm in Indiana and I've got, this is year 15. The next, I think, most tenured players, six seasons maybe. So it's a huge gap. And I've had to develop a lot of patience, become more of a vocal leader. I've always led more by example, just, let my game do the talking for me. But having, teammates as young as the ones that I've had to be more vocal, teach a lot more, just kind of be in their ear a little bit, which for me, that's definitely stepping out of my comfort zone because I don't really like to talk. I'll communicate like on the court, but as far as like pulling people aside and giving direction, all of that, definitely had to grow from that aspect. But I've enjoyed it. I mean, and it'll be even more growth this year because we'll have a new coach who knows players based upon their game, but doesn't necessarily know their personalities. So she's like, I need you to help me. You know these guys. I don't necessarily know everybody yet. So it should be fun.
I've got one more question for now, and then I'll pass it off to Aryeh. Sorry, I'm just
No. I'm loving it.
You've been compared to Tim Duncan. I want to know from you, from growing up throughout your career, who was someone that you kind of idolized or looked to model your game after?
Being 100% honest, I never watched sports growing up. It was always on in my house. We always, whether it was football, basketball, always on, but I never watched it. Like I was always either too busy competing in some type of rec league or outside playing, but I never watched. Never, even in college, like my coaches would be like, watch the game. You're not I'm like, I don't enjoy watching them. They're like, you're not watching for enjoyment. You're watching it to learn. And it took me years to figure out like what they meant by that. So now I find myself when I'm watching games, like I'm picking apart like little intricate details, trying to see what type of plays they're running. I'm like, man, I wish I would have figured this out years ago. But yeah, like growing up, I just never took the time to watch. I just wanted to play, be involved in it.
I like that. Most people would give us some BS answer and name some random person. So I appreciate the honesty and the realness. I'm going to hit you with a few rapid fire questions. Whatever first comes to your mind. Most memorable moment as a player, and you can't cop out and say winning the championship.
Most memorable moment as a player? You might not get a rapid fire answer because now I have to think about it.
I say rapid fire, but like I just don't want,
Okay, probably All-Star 2018? I think.
Minnesota?
Nope, so 2017. Seattle.
Yep.
Yeah. I mean, I think I was the oldest one on the Eastern Conference All-Star team. And just players calling me OG and what? Like I made it to this point. I'm like the oldest player. It was like me and Tina. So probably that, like just having an opportunity to watch like these younger players and the ones that are up and coming and being a part of that whole process, and watching them enjoy, like for some of them, a lot of them, it was their first All-Star experience. So either 2017 and even last year, 2019, watching all these first-time All-Stars partake in that and sitting there like, man, I've been around for a long time.
Do you feel like you've been around for a long time, or is it kind of like those reminders kind of?
It's the reminders. I don't feel like it, but then when you guys are like, year 15, I'm like, man, yeah, legend. Use the word legend.
Yeah, I can't envision women's basketball without you. That's the crazy part. It's like
I think about when I came to the league and like Lisa Leslie was still playing, Cheryl Swoops and Tina, Dawn Staley, and now it's like, dang, I'm tied for like 5th in all-time scoring and like and all that stuff. And I don't ever pay attention to the accolades, but when people start like just running off the numbers and everything else, it's like, wow, like I've had a hell of a career.
Yeah. And I like that you and Simone, two players that have really bread and butter is, that 15-footer or whatever, are up there on the stat sheets, because it's definitely a sign for the younger players who are coming into it. Like there's a way to be a top tier successful player in this world and not just be launching up half-court threes all game.
Yeah,
So,
for sure.
all right, moving on to our slow rapid fire. When I say overseas, what story or what two stories come to mind? I think a lot of attentions come with the whole Sue Bird, Diana Taurasi, owner of the team, Shabtai, getting assassinated and stuff. But everybody who's played overseas has some story. Rachel played overseas for a year and has a crazy story.
Well,
So
and hold that, you've played everywhere. I mean, literally everywhere.
Yeah.
You've been playing over there. It's just, I mean, I can't even imagine the story.
I played mostly in all former communist Eastern European countries. I have yet to play in a quote unquote nice country like Spain or Italy. I mean, I've played against teams there, but I haven't played for a team in those countries. So yeah, the experience is my first year overseas. I was in Russia. I think I lasted for 2 months maybe, and then I was like, I'm out of here. It was a blessing in disguise because I was able to go back to school, do my internship, get my degree and all that. But just going through the grocery store, being African American, and I had another African American teammate from the States, and just being followed around with a camera, we're just a rare panda in the grocery store. So to go over there and that's your first year, I'm 21, 22 years old, and I'm just like, man, this is what overseas is going to be like. So that was probably my most interesting experience.
And where all have you played? You've been in Russia, you've been in Hungary.
Russia, Hungary, Poland, Slovakia, China. I think that's all. I always did 2-year stints on every team that I played with. So yeah.
wow. I'm actually curious. I'm going to sidetrack for a second.
Okay.
Can you talk briefly just about the differences, your experiences in China basketball versus in Russian basketball? Because I very much view them as separate entities when we talk about the overseas ball. Obviously, China, at least for us, is a little bit harder to get stats and information or whatever. But I'm curious for someone who's been to both, kind of talking about the two.
China hated it. I actually signed a 2-month contract because the team that I played for, they told me up front, we're not very good. We're super young. The coach was coming from a lower division level. So they signed me to 2 months because they weren't sure if we were going to even make the playoffs, nothing like that. And after the first month, I was like, you know what? I wired them my payment back for the second month. And I was like, you can have it. I'm not staying here. It was tough. It's the team that I was on. Now, other players could have very different experiences, but it was a very militaristic style environment. The girls practicing 3 times a day. But it's full on running sprints for the warm-ups before the games. It was nuts. And I'm like, my body, being that I play all year round, I can't do it. And then on top of that, I wasn't eating because I was in this small village that I was eating rice and all the different foods that they eat. I'm like, there's no way. I'm open to trying things, but I'm not going to eat bullfrog and stuff like that. So you compare that to Russia. I think in total, I probably played 4.5 years in Russia. Not a terrible experience. I actually had really good experiences with the 3 teams that I played for there. Different, obviously, as far as the climate, the food. More often than not, people don't speak English. But the years that I was there, I had a Greek coach, I had an American coach, so they always spoke English. But a lot of your teammates sometimes won't. So trying to communicate with them is a little unique. But if I had to choose Russia over China, definitely going with Russia.
Which one had the crazier fans?
I don't know that any of them were crazy per se. Never had any. Just depends. Whatever city you playing in Russia, the fans could be very different. Some cities had some pretty wild fans. Some the arena might be filled, but it's silent. So it just depends.
That's so weird. I mean, hey, we might be experiencing something similar to that this season.
Pin drop, but there's bodies in the seats, so
Well, this is a pretty poignant question then. I mean, as an athlete, as a player who's on the court, who's experienced thousands of people screaming at you and then experienced thousands of people there not talking, can you talk a little bit about what that does to your game, having the crowd versus no crowd?
I think obviously when you're the home team and having fans there, you feed off of that energy, works to your benefit. Now, if you're the opposing team, like you don't want to deal with that. But I don't know, like this upcoming, well, this summer, if we have a season and no fans, I think it'll be a little awkward. But I've been pretty good at tuning out fans anyway. Like it's almost like they're not even there for me. I try to put all my focus into what's going on the court. So I'm hoping that it won't be, too much of a difference once we start playing.
I hear that. All right, back to the rapid fire questions. Got two more for you.
Dude, you're sucking at the rapid fire.
I know. I failed. My percentage is low. All right. When we say WNBA IQ, what player comes to mind?
Diana Taurasi, for sure. I mean, her mind for the game it's like something I've never seen before.
All right. I love it. Because honestly, a lot of people don't talk about that aspect of her game. Everyone talks about, oh, she's a killer. Oh, she's going to hit this shot. She'll smack talk. Don't talk trash to her because she's going to back it up or whatever. But
she can definitely, I mean, my basketball IQ is pretty high, but hers is definitely on another level for sure.
That's awesome. All right. Hardest player you have ever faced?
Probably Elena Deladon. Her release is extremely high. Obviously, I'm giving up some inches. She's tall. I think her game is similar in mine in that she's very composed. She takes her time. She gets the shot that she wants to take. So it's extremely difficult for me to guard.
Is that exciting, knowing that you're getting Stanley from DC and kind of having that knowledge of how to work with players with somewhat similar styles?
I think so. And I think Stanley is not more focused, but she's told me that she enjoys coaching post players, and that's who she's kind of migrated towards in her coaching career, is working with the bigs. So it'll be fun to see, some of the new things that she brings to the table in Indiana. Hopefully when it comes time to have to play against Washington, I mean, she should have the full scouting report on that team. So make it a little bit easier because they're tough.
Of the episode right there. All right, you have more? I have one more, and then I'm done.
Go for it, Rachel. You already touched on my last one, so go for it.
Actually, I take that back. I lied. I have two.
Okay.
How has the league evolved since you started? Like, what are the biggest differences from 15 years ago and now?
The biggest differences, I think the league is more competitive as a whole. You always had like your bottom of the barrel kind of teams. Like you knew what teams were going to be really good and you knew what teams probably weren't going to be. Not to say, and then like every year, the media puts up, well, this is who we predict to win the championship. Like you're always going to have that stuff. But I think as a whole, when you go through rosters and you look at teams, it's like, man, anybody can win it this year. So I think that's probably been the biggest change, is you just never know what teams are bringing to the table. It's, the championship's kind of been up for grabs last couple of years.
If you were, and this is kind of, bear with me here, this era of like positionless basketball, right? Like these unicorn, 6'5" point guards, like it's like nobody wants to play with their back to the basket anymore.
Yeah.
And if you can, you actually in your own right are a unicorn, because it's so hard to find globally. And I do a lot of stuff internationally. It's very hard to find true back to the basket post players. Not saying that that's all you are, but you do have that huge element to your game. What would you say to an upcoming player who's got size, who's got skill, who's got athleticism, not just from a back to the basket standpoint and developing that aspect of their game, but just what advice would you give them as they are entering into their collegiate professional career?
I think the biggest thing is be as versatile as possible. Don't limit yourself to being just a back to the basket or just a 15-footer or only shooting threes. I think you can be 6'5", 6'6", and be a Kevin Durant. I mean, you got to kind of pick and choose. Okay, if you've got a smaller defender, well, hey, let me get him down the block. Or if somebody's bigger and slower, let's take him away from the basket, shot fake, put the ball on the ground. So I think it's just versatility. Obviously you can't do it all at once. It's about growth, and that's something that I've learned throughout my career. Like, okay, I'm only 6'2", a little undersized. I can't continue to try and just beast people back to the basket, because I'm playing against people that are bigger and stronger. So let me work on my face-up game, shot fake, put it on the floor, that kind of stuff, and then stepping away with the whole pick and pop. So now I'm looking to grow by adding three-point shot to my game. I'm 15 years in and I'm still looking for different ways to expand my game. So I think it's just versatility. Like, don't go away from things just because the masses aren't doing that. I've played with people that are almost 7 feet tall and hate posting up. And I'm like, why? Like, you have such a huge advantage. You're one of the biggest players in Europe. Like, why would you not want to take advantage of that? At the end of the day, it only makes you more money. Like, everybody's going to want you. So yeah, just not limiting yourself.
All right, I did realize I have one last question. This is by far the hardest question we've asked anybody before. As it's come on the men's side, there's been a lot of talk of, this great Bulls team versus this great team. And on the W side, I'm glad we're finally in this era where we can start a little bit of smack talk. We can start a little bit of comparison. Diana Taurasi has been very vocal on that championship team that you were on being the best team of all time.
Oh, yeah. Look at our record. Look at the roster that we had.
Oh, it was insane. I was
actually talking about that this morning. Like, we were big as hell. It was me, Diana, Penny, BG, Dewana Bonner. Then we had a Polish player coming off the bench that was like 6'4", 6'5", Misty Bass, who's like 6'2", 6'3". Like, we were huge. Erin Phillips, who wasn't tall but made up for it. She was a dog on the court. So it was like, we switched everything. You go from one 6-footer to the next 6-footer on defense, like, hands down, for sure.
So I feel like I know where you're going to answer this, but Comets versus Mercury.
Oh,
Mercury. Who's stopping Brittany Griner from the Comets?
Thompson. I don't know. I mean, no one can stop her, truly. When she decides to go, nobody can stop her.
I just think that in 2014, like, we just had so many different, it was like, pick your poison. Who are you going to stop? And when one person was off that night, then the next person stepped up. Like, it was just, we had so many weapons that year.
Yeah. Well, you guys heard it here first. Phoenix Mercury, 2014, greatest team in the history of the WNBA.
And Cynthia Cooper's first surprise. No, I wouldn't do that to you. Well, thank you so much, Candice. We really appreciate it. Thank you for joining us. Stay safe. Hope you and your family are safe. And hopefully we'll see you on the court this season.
All right, cool. Thank you guys for having me.